Well, House Oversight Chair James Comer thinks it would be helpful for Kamala Harris to testify in the Autopen investigation. Watch.
I think that it would be helpful to hear from Kamala Harris. We haven't decided whether or not we're going to issue the subpoena or not, but certainly she's welcome to come to the committee. And I think that, you know, if I were her and wanted to have a political future, I would want to set the record straight on a lot of this stuff, because it's going to haunt her entire political career, because nobody thinks that Joe Biden was calling the shots in the end.
Joining me now is Congressman Dan Meuser, chairman on the Oversight Investigation Subcommittee. So, Congressman, I've got questions I'd like to ask her as well, but if she comes into the committee, what question would you like to ask her?
Well, hey, David, great to be with you. Well, obviously, she's the vice president. She claims to have been with President Biden quite a bit, making decisions, last one in the room, that sort of thing. So what we, in the end, really need to know is, was the president executing executive powers and approving executive action? That's required by the United States Constitution. And if he was not, and we have evidence to show that he wasn't, then those orders, those pardons, those executive orders were invalid. So we want to ask former Vice President Harris those questions and see what she has to say. You know, David, the group surrounding the president referred to themselves as the Politburo.
Oy.
Right? This is the Politburo. The Politburo was the central command of the Communist Party. Yeah. And there were 4 or 5 of them part of this Politburo. Now, Vice President Harris was not part of that. But again, being the Vice President of the United States, certainly we'd like to hear what she has to say.
Well, you say you have evidence that President Biden was not aware of some of the things that the Autopen was used for. Do you have any evidence about who was?
Well, Ron claimed there are emails that showed that he authorized certain pardons. He authorized the use of the Autopen. And there were hundreds of these Autopen pardons, by the way, if not thousands, particularly after Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So that and the testimony, let's face it, the testimony yesterday from Ian Sams, he's one of the chief spokespersons for Joe Biden, only met with him twice.
Twice, yes.
And yet he was out there defending him to no end on a regular, constant basis, combating everything, every piece of evidence or question that Jamie Comer and his committee posed.
Right.
So there's a lot of smoke here. We just got to see if the president of the United States actually was the one executing these orders. If not, they were invalid. And those that did those authorizations, I think, are going to be in a certain level of trouble. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see if you can claw back those pardons. But I want to switch to an economic issue, which is the idea of rescissions. Now, we have had a rescission package, $9 billion. That's not chump change, but in Washington, maybe it is. The point is you can do a lot more with something called a pocket rescission. The details of it are too long to get into now, but some people say it wouldn't be constitutional because it's similar to a line item veto that the Supreme Court said was unconstitutional. How do you stand on pocket rescissions?
Well, look, we got a lot of work to do. We're running deficits of $2 trillion, and it's less now because of the president's action, because of our pro-growth initiatives, because of some of the savings that are taking place. We saw Jerome Powell today talk about interest rates. 1% reduction in interest rate will boost our GDP by $350 billion and reduce our service on our debt by $300 billion. That's serious money. But to your question on rescissions, it is something that is permissible under our congressional provisions. We do want to focus there. We need to provide targeted savings for our spending levels.
So just to put a fine point on it, we have to put a fine point on it. Are you for the pocket rescissions? We had Senator Kennedy on yesterday. He said yes. Are you?
I'm absolutely favorable to the pocket rescissions, yes.
Good. We got you on the record. Thank you very much for being here. Have a wonderful weekend, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Same here, David. Thank you.